It's time for the Splash Live from Civic Center TV, featuring stories from and about people like you in the greater West Bloomfield area. Simulcast on cable, 89.3 Lakes FM, social media, and the web. Now live from Green Media Center on Walnut Lake Road, it's the Splash Live.
Live, local, social, it's the Splash Live on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. I'm your host for the day, Jake Schaff, going over all of the biggest news right here in the four communities. Let's not waste any time getting into a new look into the Sylvan Lake history that's coming tonight at the community center. In recent years, our team has partnered with Sylvan Lake historian Helen Jane Peters, filming seminars to tell the Sylvan story. A 6th edition of the program is coming very, very soon, and you can enjoy the look back through the history of the prettiest little city in Michigan on Tuesday night, tonight, beginning at 7 o'clock p.m. Helen Jane will talk about the story behind this painting that you see on the screen if you are watching on Civic Center TV, Mary and Her Little Lamb, an iconic nursery rhyme that was accompanied by a painting iconic in Sylvan history. Plus, you will have the opportunity to meet former Whitfield school teacher who saved the painting from being destroyed all the way back in 1991, and see more paintings provided on display by the artist Roy Gamble's family. 6:30 p.m. is the social time, 7 o'clock is the show time. Now, if you can't attend, stay tuned with us here on Civic Center TV. We will record the seminar and broadcast it right here in the community very, very soon. Soon, sure to be a very exciting event taking place tonight right here in Sylvan. But we're also looking ahead to events coming up in the next few weeks. Halloween is coming up right here in the four communities, and Halloween festivities are going to begin at our community library. Celebrate Halloween with festive events at both West Bloomfield Township Public Library branches. From creepy crawly fun for kids to wickedly sweet treats for teens and chilling mysteries for adults, there's a thrill waiting for everyone. Join West Bloomfield Township Public Library for a hauntingly good time. Registration is required for some programs. Learn more at westbloomfieldlibrarycalendar.com/events. So definitely fun for the whole family, whether you're 3 years old or 13 years old or 33 years old, there's sure to be something for you. So much spooky fun coming right here to the four communities. And of course, we also want to talk about some of the bigger events that are coming up here to keep you guys safe. Drug Take Back Day is coming up on Saturday, October 26th from 10 to 2 at the West Bloomfield Police Department. And you will be bringing your expired and unwanted medications to 4530 Walnut Lake Road. No liquids or sharp needles, please. If you're unable to make this day in time, drugs will be accepted there year-round. But this is going to be a great chance to drop off, maybe clear out the medicine cabinet, drop off some of that stuff you don't need anymore, and make sure it's disposed of very, very safely. So be on the lookout for that October 26th. From 10 to 2 p.m. Now, if you're interested in helping out yourself with these emergency services, there might be an opportunity for you coming up. Join the West Bloomfield Fire Department team as a fire and EMS scholar. The fire department is excited to announce a new opportunity to become a part of their team. And this part-time temporary civilian position is designed to support individuals pursuing an EMS career at a local community college to obtain state certifications. Best of all, tuition is paid, allowing you to receive hands-on training and education without the financial burden. As a fire scholar, you'll be expected to attend all required classes and meet the community college's standards to become state certified with the program. If you're ready to start your journey in emergency services and to make a lasting impact, they want to hear from you. So be on the lookout and check out that job opportunity if you are interested in gaining that knowledge. And of course, we got to look ahead to some very, very fun activities coming up in the four communities and beyond. And a local raffle is going to be giving you a chance to win a pair of tickets to see the Detroit Lions take on the Tennessee Titans. The West Bloomfield Educational Foundation is currently promoting a raffle fundraiser to benefit local organizations to get you to Ford Field. Enter to win 2 tickets to see the Detroit Lions take on the Titans at Ford Field on Sunday, October 27th at 1 p.m. To purchase raffle tickets, it is 1 for $10, 5 for $40, and 10 for $70. And proceeds support the Oakland Early College and West Bloomfield Educational Foundation. And the QR code is going to be on the screen right now if you are watching on civiccentertv.com. So you will have the chance to scan it right there to take you right to the site. The drawing is going to be on October 22nd at, fittingly, 10:22 a.m. So much fun, and excitement for the Lions is at an all-time high, especially after their dominant win over the weekend against the Dallas Cowboys. So that is sure to be a very fun game. And if you want a chance to see it, all you got to do is submit. But, of course, we also got to talk about local football, and close to home, your Laker football is on the bubble for the playoffs after a tough loss last week to Oxford. Civic Center TV's Tyler Kieft had a chance to speak to head coach Zach Hilbers about the 14-38 loss on senior night and how it's going to be used as motivations as the Lakers fight for a chance at some playoff football.
Lakers finishing off their OAA Red Division season, not the way we were hoping for it to go, a 14-38 loss to Oxford, where they really played their perfect style of football in that game. Evaluate from just on a summarizing point, just how well Oxford played and ultimately what brought that to a loss on Thursday last week.
Yeah, they deserve all the credit because they did, everything that I guess they wanted to, and has been their identity for years. They just came right at us and ran right at us, and we had a bad job all around of, as coaches, preparing for the week and their game plan, and then obviously adjusting to it, what was happening. And it was, we've had some tough losses on the road before in really close, hard-fought games, and this was the first one where we just didn't put a good effort out there and didn't put a good performance on the field. And I told the kids, look, I'm never embarrassed because of you guys, but we as a group should be embarrassed of the product that we put out there, as a program, because it wasn't to our standards, and that is honestly taking nothing away from Oxford, who came and did what they had to do.
And so keeping in that mindset of there's nothing really more that we could have done to prevent them from being as on point as they were, what could you have done as a team differently to maybe have been more competitive and play more of, as you said, West Bloomfield's brand of football?
You have to match their physicality, and part of my mistake last week was their big explosion plays had been in the play-action game, and they did get one at the end of the game there, but we really focused on shutting down those explosion plays for a lot of the week. And, one thing that becomes pretty glaringly obvious after the fact is you don't need explosion play action when you're running the ball right down someone's throat for the entire game, which they did. So obviously I wish I could do that all over and kind of change our emphasis for the week just to try to match them. Instead, we thought maybe our defensive alignment could give them enough trouble in the run game, and that was not the case. From
a game planning standpoint, especially in process, you have those natural breaks, the quarter breaks certainly at the half, and where you can kind of reevaluate your game plan based on what's happening on the field. But when a guy's got 150 yards and a touchdown in the first half against you, has 3 touchdowns and over 200 yards rushing, how do you adjust to that, or can you even adjust to that mid-game when they're having that kind of a performance on the field?
Yeah, he's a really good player. So give him his credit. I thought he was a really good player last year. But to answer your question, yeah, you absolutely can. And in some ways, we kind of did. And coming out of halftime there, we got them into 3 third and longs, and they converted all of them. One of them with a quarterback scramble. We did a really bad job with containment, and then 2 of them through the air. And usually you get them throwing the ball in 3rd and long, you got them out of their comfort zone. But they made the plays they needed to. But part of getting them in 3rd and long is doing a good job on 1st and 2nd down. So we did make some adjustments, but by then we're behind in the game a little bit. We let them convert anyway, and they still went down and got a field goal at that point and put points on the board.
Taking a step back, you look at that early portion of the game and that 14-38 loss last week, Thursday, to Oxford. Back and forth early on, very similar to what we saw the week before at home against Lake Orion. Had an opportunity to tie things up a couple of times. You were successful on that, getting into the end zone. But ultimately, and this kind of summarizes a lot of the issues offensively in the game, those penalties really set you back. How critical were those to taking away those opportunities that you had to be competitive with that Oxford team on Thursday.
Yeah, definitely frustrating, definitely deflating to morale. And if I'm not mistaken, they scored their first drive. We scored our first drive. We actually stopped them on fourth down. So we would have gone up 14-7 on those 2 touchdowns that were called back. But, you got to play through that stuff. Sure, it would have been nice to have a 14-7 lead, and maybe you're playing with a little bit more confidence, and, the game could have been different. But when things didn't go our way, we didn't dig our heels in and fight back, I thought. And as a staff, as players on the field, we didn't perform at the level it takes to win in this league, at a high enough level. So that's really going to be our focus this week, is just matching physicality and asserting our will, and really trying to be less reactive, take our fight metaphorically, obviously, to the opponent.
And it's one of the many cliches you hear in the game of football. Having that short-term memory, it's usually associated with quarterbacks like yourself or like Bo and Jamal, but that really does apply to the whole team, because you got to take the bad from last week and talk about it and think about it and really learn from it. Yeah. But you also don't have time to dwell on it. You got one extra day leading up to that Friday football game from that Thursday football game, but these last 2 games are really critical. So how do you sort of mix and match that to get yourself well prepared, but also learn a tough lesson from Oxford?
Yeah, we spent Friday through Sunday kind of reviewing last Thursday's game, looking at the mistakes we made and trying to be very critical of it. And we told the kids, once Monday happens, we're done. Like, that is over with. It's in the past. We're not going to dwell on it. We're not going to let Oxford beat us 2 straight weeks. We're going to be ourselves this week, and our back's up against the wall. So we got to get out there and do what we need to do.
You can find out more information about the West Bloomfield football team, watch This Week in Laker Football, and learn about live coverage for this week's game on civiccentertv.com/Lakersports. Best of luck to the Lakers this week. As long as they still got a shot, there's always time to turn it around. Look at the Tigers this year. We didn't think much of them this season. They just had a very successful playoff run, so there's always time to turn things around. But October's not just about football. It's also about raising awareness and keeping the community healthy. October is dedicated to raising awareness about breast cancer, promoting early detection, and supporting those who are affected by the disease. Breast cancer is the most common cancer among women worldwide, with 1 in 8 women diagnosed in their lifetime, highlighting the need for ongoing awareness and research. And joining us right now on The Splash to talk about it, we have doctor and clinical professor with expertise in breast cancer, Dr. Monique Swain. Dr. Swain, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me this morning. Hello.
Hello, glad to have you with us and for a very important topic. I want to get right into it. What advancements in early detection and screening for breast cancer have you seen during your career, and how do they impact outcomes for patients?
Yes, so one of the biggest issues that we faced in screening are women who have dense breasts. And so when I was in training, we had developed a system that could help us to detect cancer better in women who had denser breasts. And so some women may have heard of a 3D mammogram, or what we call digital breast tomosynthesis. And this was FDA approved in 2011, but has been growingly popular among women today. And so I do ask my clinician colleagues to make sure that their patients who have dense breasts, get a 3D mammogram or a DBT. But even later technologies that has come to the forefront is something called molecular breast imaging, or MBI. And this actually kind of is a combo between MRI and mammogram together. So the patients also receive contrast, but also the same technique as a mammogram. And it's really helped to improve detection rates in patients who have dense breasts. So we're really excited about this new technology now, and that we're using this at Henry Ford too as well.
That's amazing. So many great new technology advancements, all dedicated to helping keep people safe. That's always great to hear, Dr. Swain. And with breast cancer awareness having evolved in recent years, particularly in reaching undeserved or high-risk populations, what have you seen from that angle?
Yeah, so as far as patients, obviously, who have social determinants of health or in underserved areas, there has been a huge push to have what they call mobile mammogram. So these are for individuals who may not have insurance or may not have transportation access to get their mammogram, or have a physician to put in a requisition for them. They can now use their neighborhood mobile mammogram to get their mammogram, annually. And I think this is an excellent thing to help kind of bridge that gap in healthcare.
That is excellent and great, and a great way to help promote more screenings and to help again keep that health in line. And I also want to talk about what are maybe some of the challenges you face when it comes to educating patients about the importance of these regular screenings, and how do you address those barriers?
I think some of the biggest challenges are myths that are out there, kind of what family is saying, maybe what their moms or cousins or aunts have said in the past. And I think some of those things are hard things to get through, particularly in my community. Women of color. There's a lot that they have been through experiences in the healthcare system and having that mistrust. And I think getting through those barriers and really getting patients to trust us and know that we're really here for their best interest and we want the best for them. Unfortunately, women of color, we have a 42% higher risk of dying of breast cancer, even though we're diagnosed less likely than any of our counterparts. So it's really important for us to instill in them the importance of screening, and that screening is here to help them and not hurt them.
That's absolutely right. For those just joining us on Civic Center TV, we have Dr. Monique Swain, a clinical professor with expertise in breast cancer, sharing some guidance on October being Breast Cancer Awareness Month and ways to keep you happy and healthy. Now, it's not just the physical support that's important when it comes to breast cancer diagnosis. It's also the emotional and the psychological support. That plays a big role as well. And could you talk about a little bit what that does play when it comes to treatment and the recovery process for breast cancer patients?
Yeah, so at Henry Ford, we extremely value psychological support. For any patient that actually is diagnosed with breast cancer, they are referred to we call psych onc, because we understand the emotional toll that a cancer diagnosis can play on not just the individual, but also on their families too as well. And we realize too that emotional state can also impact the not only just their success rate in terms of treatment, but just their ability to even want to go to treatment. If you're not feeling good about yourself, or overwhelmed by the diagnosis, sometimes we find that patients may avoid coming to treatment, maybe miss appointments. And so we have individuals here who really understand what that is to go through, and specialists here to talk them through that, and guide them through the process. So it makes it easier for them.
That's fantastic. Now, there's a new U.S. rule that's requiring mammography at centers to inform women about their breast density, a regulation that began in early September. In your experience, Dr. Swain, how has this new rule affected patient inquiries or the demand for additional screenings like an ultrasound or an MRI?
Yes, so I am really pleased that this was something that was placed as a rule, and now it gives our patients, the autonomy and empowers them to ask for the screening that they need, that's necessary for them to identify cancer in their breast. I always tell patients it's really important not only to feel empowered, but to advocate for oneself. And I think knowledge is power. If you didn't know, how do you know what to ask for? And so now that we are mandated to provide this information to patients, their breast density, it gives that patient the empowerment to ask for something that is what's best for them in order to give them the best care possible.
That is absolutely right. Now, it is important to note that it's not just women who can get breast cancer. Men can get breast cancer as well. And I want to ask, how do you approach raising awareness about male breast cancer, and especially within the medical community and the public?
Absolutely, men can get breast cancer as well. Now, the rate is not as high. Their rate is less than 1%. But absolutely, what puts men more at risk is if they have a genetic mutation, specifically BRCA2 or even BRCA1. But BRCA2 more often, it actually can increase their risk to about 7%. So it's really important for individuals that have a family history of breast cancer that not only the women get tested, but the men get tested for a genetic mutation too, because they might be a carrier of a gene like BRCA2 and not realize that. Um, for men, it's really important that they too have what I call breast self-awareness. So if they notice something like a new lump, skin changes, nipple changes, or discharge, that they need to see their primary care immediately. Unfortunately, men are much more likely to be diagnosed at later stages because they don't know, because no one talks about it. I just recently gave a presentation last week uh, at a within the community about male breast cancer as well as female breast cancer. So I think it's important to speak on it, and clinicians like myself to make everyone aware that this does exist and that men are not exempt from getting breast cancer.
That's absolutely right. Even I was a little naive on male breast cancer. I didn't realize that was a thing until maybe just a few years ago. And it's great that information like this is being made public and we're talking about it more and people are aware of symptoms and can check it out for themselves. Dr. Swain, before I let you go, as someone involved in both clinical practice and academia, how do you see research in breast cancer treatment advancing throughout the next decade?
Yeah, so my main area of expertise in terms of research is actually oncofertility, and so looking at disparities in oncofertility. And I think it's really important that not just men but women too as well. When they get diagnosed with a cancer, not something that they asked for, they're able to have access to fertility, and fertility that, in my opinion, is paid for by our state and by our government, so that these individuals have further rights to go on to have children later. So that's where my area of focus is. But some of the research that's being done today is more looking at biologic markers in cancer and really trying to target therapies to those biologic markers. So what we can do is we can have more individuals who are living now, who are surviving past breast cancer, and really helping to bridge that gap, like I said, and women of color compared to others. So I'm hoping that these advancements come before I retire. And I really would love to see that gap in healthcare disparities close before my career ends.
That's absolutely right. It's very important to close the gap. Dr. Swain, thank you so much for your time today. Doctor and clinical professor with expertise in breast cancer, Dr. Monique Swain. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Glad to have you with us and glad to know all of this important information as October continues on and we continue to raise awareness about breast cancer and ways to keep everybody treated and to keep everybody safe. But we're also wanting to educate the community, not just when it comes to their health, but when it comes to their city itself. And Oakland County Clerk and Register of Deeds Lisa Brown is going to be hosting 2 town hall meetings coming up focused on election protection and security titled Defending Democracy. These events will include Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel and State Senator Jeremy Moss, who will be discussing measures to safeguard Michigan's elections. There are going to be 2 of these events. The first one is going to be taking place tonight, Tuesday, October 15th, in Lathrop Village at the Southfield Public Schools University K-12 Academy from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. And the second one is going to take place this Saturday, October 19th, 2024, at the Oakland County Board of Commissioners Auditorium from 3:30 to 5 o'clock p.m. These town halls are going to offer a unique opportunity for voters to learn about the collaborative efforts between local and state officials. And here to tell us more about these events, we have Oakland County Clerk and Register of Deeds Lisa Brown. Lisa, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me and for sharing information about the town halls.
Absolutely. It's great information and very crucial for everyone to know, especially as election season is very much coming up. We got the elections in just a few weeks. So what prompted you to organize these Defending Democracy town hall meetings, and what do you hope attendees will gain from them?
It's kind of 2 questions in one that I can put the answers together. There's been a lot of misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation about our elections and the processes that we have in place. And I want people to feel confident about when they cast their ballot that it's being counted and that the ballots that are counted are those of eligible citizens, and a better understanding of our process. And I often say democracy is a team sport. And usually when I say that, I'm referring to the relationships that I have with our local clerks, as well as the people who work on election day, voters. But I'm not always talking about those in other elected offices at the state level. And I'm really proud of my partnership and relationship with both Senator Moss and Attorney General Nessel when it comes to our elections. And I think it's important for people to know all the different levels and how different offices interact actually with elections, that it's not just a clerk that has something to do with it. Our Attorney General is holding people accountable. You know, we talk about the checks and balances in place. It doesn't mean anything if no one is going to charge someone who votes twice, or any other, or forging signatures on petitions. Right? So we can find these things in all the checks and balances that clerks do throughout the election process, but we have to have that partner in our AG or a prosecutor to go after these people so that it deters anyone else from doing any wrongdoing with our elections.
That's absolutely right. And these elections are more crucial than ever before. And especially as the switch has been made in the last few years to mail-in ballots, there's definitely more to be aware of. In your experience, what are some of the most common misconceptions voters have about election security?
I think a lot of it stemmed from 2020 and the counting of the absentee ballots in Detroit. And people not understanding that you don't have every ballot to count before 8 p.m. on election night. You know, our community, West Bloomfield, has a number of drop boxes for your ballots. Every community has drop boxes. And voters have up until 8 p.m. on election night to return their ballot to that drop box. At 8:01, those are emptied out, or 8 o'clock in 1 second, right? Those drop boxes are checked by your local clerk and their staff and their team. And then if there are ballots in there, they have to be brought back to the office. And those ballots go through all of the checks and balances that every other absentee ballot has gone through up until that point. Checking in with a qualified voter file saying that ballot has been returned, checking the signature on it, all those checks and balances that we have in place. All these things have to happen before that envelope can even be opened and a ballot put in the tabulator. So it does take time for the whole process to be completed. And so people shouldn't expect to have all of our election results at 8:05 p.m. We will have some, but I think that was a big thing that people just, because they didn't understand the process, they thought there was something wrong happening. And so I want to be able to answer those questions for people, and so they don't come to the wrong conclusion about things.
That's absolutely right. There's a lot more things to check now with this new way of voting, and it's just all done to make sure that everything is secure and everything is fair. And can you share, Lisa, some of the specific measures that your office has implemented to ensure Oakland County elections are secure and transparent?
Well, every clerk has to follow the same laws and the same procedures. That includes our public accuracy test, which we'll be having 3 of those this week and another one on Monday for early voting equipment, as well as the equipment we used for our absentee voting counting board. Every clerk has public accuracy tests. People just are ignoring that in their local paper when they see the announcement of it. That's one of the checks and balances of ensuring that our equipment is working properly and tabulating correctly, and that no one has messed with it. The canvas after the election, which again, this is something that the public can come watch. We audit elections after they're certified. We have Democrats and Republicans working next to each other in our precincts, in our early voting sites, and in our absentee voting counting boards to make sure there's nothing going wrong. We tell our workers they're not allowed to bring pens in. If they're given a pen, it is green because you don't use that on a ballot. So there's no funny business going on. There's just so many things that most people don't realize, all the things that are in place. I know when I've had people come to our public accuracy test and they come as doubters and they leave saying, I had no idea. I had no idea all this went in, all this work, all this testing. Now I trust our elections because now I know.
That's absolutely right. A lot of work being done to keep these elections fair. For those just joining us, we are talking with Oakland County Clerk Lisa Brown about the Defending Democracy Town Halls. One is coming up tonight, October 15th. The other is coming up this Saturday, October 19th. And you talked about this a little bit earlier, Lisa, but how does collaboration with the state officials like Attorney General Nessel and Senator Moss strengthen the election protection efforts right here in Michigan?
Well, I'm lucky and fortunate to have a wonderful relationship and friendship with Senator Moss, and he actually is the chair of the Elections Committee in the Senate. So to have his ear and to know that he has said to me, I'm not going to pass something, I'm not going to pass legislation that the clerks don't think is good. And I've worked with him tirelessly on a number of bills. And if, I've said, hey, Jeremy, we need to fix this, or, this bill was introduced, we need to tweak it this way. And it's great to have that ear. And, he had a heavy lift in getting through the legislation to implement Proposal 22-2. So having his perspective and also his ear and being able to share his perspective to the people of Oakland County as well, I think is important. And as I said, with Attorney General Nessel, like I said, we find if there's a crime that's been committed, if somebody has voted twice, if there's a forged signature, we find that and we report that. And having her prosecute people or charge people with these crimes, that she doesn't shrug it off and say, oh, it's not a big deal, oh, it's one voter or anything. She takes all of this very seriously, and I appreciate that so much, that I know that we have someone who will hold everyone accountable, and that's what we want, right? Everyone is to play by the same rules, and when you don't play by those rules, there are consequences, and her role in that is incredible.
That's absolutely right. If you're thinking about interfering in any way, you will be caught. That is something to keep in mind. And it's not just the election workers and people like Attorney General Nessel and Senator Moss who are helping out with this. It's the community itself. It's the voters. And can you talk about what role you see local communities playing in supporting secure and fair elections?
Well, again, so many of our steps are transparent, are open for the public to observe, but also there's challengers that can be at the precinct, that can, our political parties can automatically have challengers there to make sure things are going well. If they see a voter that they think is not of age or doesn't live there, they can challenge the status of that voter to an election worker, not to the voter themselves. And then third parties. So talking about members of the community, these are nonprofits that can apply to have challengers as well. So as I say, it's a team sport. It takes a village, and everybody can play a role in this. And if I've heard a lot of people say, oh, I heard, I don't know, some sort of something nefarious, right? I heard a bunch of people that somebody stuffed the ballot box, right? If you think that you have knowledge of a crime, you have an obligation to report that. But I will say that our checks and balances would find that out as well. But the sooner we can find something out, the better. I hear a lot of that anecdotally, like, oh, my neighbor said that their sister-in-law said that, da 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 da. I also want to say, if somebody has a question, if they have a doubt, you can reach out to my office, you can reach out to your local clerk's office. There's a lot of misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation out there. And find a trusted source. See, if it's not your own local clerk, call another local clerk. If you feel like it's a political issue, which it isn't, we all do our jobs in a nonpartisan way. We take an oath of office to uphold the Constitution of the United States and of Michigan. Democrat or Republican or appointed, it doesn't matter. We all adhere to that oath and take it very seriously. But it bothers me that people are getting information from people who are not election administrators and really don't know election law in Michigan.
That's right. And it's great that it's great the work everyone on your team does, not just you guys, but the voters themselves. Lisa, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I got one more question for you. Looking forward, how do you envision the future of election security evolving in Michigan and the broader United States?
You know what? Michigan already has a top-notch system from our very robust test deck that we use in our public accuracy test, our logic and accuracy testing of all the different ways that a ballot can be voted to make sure that the tabulators are reading it correctly, to the canvas. Our board of canvassers is made up of 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans, to the audits that we do. We are really, when it comes to election security, Michigan is at the top of the list. The qualified voter file, it has multi-factor authentication in order to log in. I have to every month double check the people in my office to ensure that if somebody no longer works here, that they no longer have access to the qualified voter file. So it's a year round. It's not it just gets too close to election and we start doing election security things. It is a year round process of ensuring that our elections are accurate, secure, and fair.
And it's great work that you do. Lisa, thank you so much for your time today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Glad to have you with us and glad to have all of this important information right here at the ready. Defending Democracy. Once again, those dates, the first one is tonight, Tuesday, October 15th from 5:30 to 7:30. And if you can't make it to this one, there's another one this Saturday, the 19th from 3:30 to 5 p.m. But moving on, we've got all sorts of other big things right here in the 4 communities, including talking about some of the big names that grew up around this area, including Jackie Callan. Callan, of course, one of boxing's first and most successful female managers, all while overcoming many challenges as a female in a male-dominated sport like boxing. She was recently honored with an induction into the International Boxing Hall of Fame, which is an incredible achievement. And here to tell us more is the woman herself, legendary boxing manager, the First Lady of Boxing, Jackie Callan. Jackie, thanks so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure. It's a beautiful fall day, so I thought we'd do it outside. I want to get every minute of sunshine I can get. So it's a beautiful day, and I'm so happy to be talking to you.
That's right. Enjoy that wonderful weather. Enjoy that great Michigan weather right here. Now, how does it feel to receive this incredible honor of making it into the International Boxing Hall of Fame?
You know, it was a long time coming because I've been in the business for going on 46 years. But it's typical because it's a male-dominated industry. So it took a little time for them to recognize a woman who's accomplished in the sport. But it's better late than never. So I was very, very pleased to get the call. And the induction ceremony this June was beautiful up in New York. And I had my family there and some friends. And it was just a wonderful tribute to know that your work has made a difference. And most of all, to inspire other females and other minorities to go after your dream. Don't let anything stop you. I sure didn't.
That's right. Don't let any of those obstacles stand in your way if it's what you want. So that is incredible to hear, Jackie, and especially incredible after 46, I believe you said, 46 years?
Correct.
And tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started all those years ago.
Well, I was born in Detroit, went to Mumford High School, graduated back in 1964. I'm actually being honored in their Hall of Fame in October, so I'm looking forward to that. It's the 75th year of Mumford High School in Detroit. And I became a journalist at a very young age and started interviewing celebrities, athletes, musicians, actors, TV celebrities. And I did that for 25 years, and I loved every second of it. I met everyone from Elvis to Michael Jackson, Magic Johnson, just anybody that you could think of, presidents like Trump, Clinton, vice presidents, a lot of really interesting people that I would never have met if I hadn't gone into journalism. And I started covering sports back in the 70s when women were not in locker rooms and weren't covering sports. And that's how I got involved in boxing. I went to do an interview with Tommy Hearns, who was just turning pro, 19 years old. And I fell in love with the sport. Go figure, right? But coming from a family, like being the only woman, I had a brother. My dad was one of 3 brothers. My husband was one of 4 brothers. I had 2 sons. It was kind of a natural transition to move into sports. And my first interview was Mark the Bird Fidrich back in 1976. You might not remember him, but he was a really big sensation back in the 70s with the Detroit Tigers. And that led to many more interviews in the sports field, and boxing stuck. And here I am, 46 years later, still managing fighters, still traveling the country to different fights. I do a ton of motivational speaking. I love doing that. And I've written a couple of books, working on a third, and life is good. And, especially at the point when you reach my age, I'm going to be 79 years old. And a lot of women at my age are kind of retired, playing with the grandkids, playing canasta or whatever. And I just can't stop working. I love it.
That's great to hear. And so many, as you said, so many great achievements and so many great things you talked about. You've written a couple books. We had the movie with Meg Ryan. You also worked as a consultant on a show on NBC called The Contender. You worked alongside Sugar Ray Leonard and Rocky himself, Sylvester Stallone. So did you ever imagine when you started out all those years ago that your life would lead you to all of this?
No, you never really know what path you're going to take and where it's going to lead. But if you are fearless, and I've always been that kind of a very confident, strong individual, so I'll walk down any path. And I just never know what I'm going to find and what new goals are going to present themselves and what opportunities. And you have to be really open. I met Stallone in 1980 and his brother Frank, and we all became friends. And I never imagined that, over 20 years later, we'd end up working on the same TV show. I mean, you can never even imagine or predict some of the things that happen, but you have to keep an open mind. I've always been very open to new opportunities. And when that one came along with Mark Burnett's show, I just said, absolutely. And it was great. I made a lot of great friends. There were a lot of young fighters on the show, 16 of them, and I still stay in touch with a lot of them. So that was a great experience.
That's so great, and I can only imagine some of those stories you've got with Sylvester. They're probably amazing. Jackie Callan joins us right now on the Splash Live. Legendary boxing manager, recently inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame after an incredible career, which I would imagine faced quite a few hardships at the beginning as a woman in a male-dominated industry like boxing.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because back when I started, there was no Me Too movement. So women didn't talk about the things that happened or, the incidents that were inappropriate or the things that might have been uncomfortable. We just endured it and kept moving forward. And that was what I did. I just ignored it all and just kept one foot in front of the other, kept a smile on my face, and just kept moving.
And that's great. Just focus on yourself, focus on your career. Don't let any of those negative thoughts get in your head. Just focus on you. And with an incredible career like this, what have been some of the most dynamic things, would you say, have you seen throughout this entire career?
Oh, there's so much, in over 4 decades, there's so many moments that stand out. But when James Toney beat Michael Nunn back in 1991, in Michael Nunn's hometown, we were like 20-1 underdogs. And really, people laughed at him because he had a lady in the corner, a girl manager, and we were not taken seriously. But when he won that championship, it really changed things. It turned things around. I became known as the first lady of boxing. People respected me more. They looked at him differently. And I went on to manage so many other champions, like you mentioned, Bronco McCart, Boom Boom Johnson, Pinklin Thomas, Michael Dallas. I worked with Lonnie Beasley and just so many wonderful fighters. And again, I had some adversity along the way. I had 2 lumpectomies. I've had 4 heart stents. I've got glaucoma. I've had 3 bouts with melanoma. And, you just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And like you say, you do not listen to any negativity, because that can only pull you down. And other people's opinions really are none of your business. So I never cared what anybody said. I felt comfortable in my own skin. I felt like I was doing the best job I could do. I was honest. I had integrity, and I felt that would be enough to get me through. And so I didn't pay attention to any kind of negativity. And I think that's a big key. You mentioned that, and you're right. a positive, optimistic attitude is so important in success.
Jackie Callan, legendary boxing manager, joins us right now on The Splash talking about her career and her recent induction into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. Now, Jackie, having had this incredible career, I've got a question. What's something that you wish that you know now that you wish you knew when you were first starting out?
That's a wonderful question. I don't think that I've been asked that, and you'd think by now I've heard it all, but that's a great question. What do I wish I knew? I guess I wish I knew then that what I do know now that we just talked about, that other people's opinions don't mean anything. And we're not in this world to please other people. We're in this world, we have a journey, and it starts the day you're born, it ends the day you die. And what you do in between is that little dash. And it's up to you how you want that dash to read when you're no longer here. And I think I would have told my younger self, ignore negativity, don't listen to gossip, don't feed into it, and have that positive attitude that I've learned to have over the years. I wish I had it when I was younger, because seeing that glass half full, or even knowing that it's a glass, it can be refilled. If I would have known that when I was younger, I think that, it would have served me well. But I was fortunate to learn that early enough that it didn't cause a problem.
That's great. Wonderful words to say. Jackie, I could ask you so many other questions. We only got time for one more. What advice would you give to young girls today who are interested in making a name for themselves in boxing, whether they're as a fighter or as a manager?
Well, that's great because I work with both. I mentor some girls that are now starting to manage fighters. And the same thing with girls. I've managed several female fighters, including some world champion females. And the advice I give any woman is not to pay attention to your gender, because male, female is not important. Same with age, young or old, white or black. None of the isms make any difference. Know your business, because you will be tested. As a woman, we kind of have to know a little bit more than the men, because they will test you. So I would tell any woman, know your stuff, girl, because you're going to get tested. And believe in yourself. Listen to nobody but your inner voice, and stay on that track to the top, and you'll get there.
That's absolutely right. Stay on that track. Keep moving forward. Jackie Callan, the first lady of boxing, legendary boxing manager, joins us today on The Splash. Jackie, thank you so much for your time today.
It was a pleasure. I can't wait to post this so everyone can see what a great job you did and what great questions you asked. So thank you so much.
My goodness, Jackie, you're going to make me blush. Such a great time talking with you, and a big congratulations to all of your success. And we have so many more stories to get into right after this quick break. Live, local, social, it's The Splash Live.
We'll be right back with The Splash Live. Bringing you stories and memories from Sylvan Lake, Civic Center TV, television that's close to home.
Hi, I'm Lauren Azuri, the Park Naturalist Supervisor for West Bloomfield Parks. Congratulations to you, Civic Center TV, for hitting 1 million views on YouTube. We really appreciate your partnership in spreading nature education in a creative way in our community. I'm Lauren Azuri, proud to be 1 in a million.
This is Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. On cable and the radio. On the web too, and on social media. Civic Center TV, television that's close to home. And now, back to The Splash, live.
Social, it's The Splash Live on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. I'm your host, Jake Sheff, continuing talking about all of the biggest stories right here throughout the 4 communities. Another one of those stories being how a local foundation, the Jamie Daniels Foundation, is working to partner with local school districts, including the West Bloomfield School District, to help promote substance abuse prevention through mindfulness, coping skills, and wellness training, all very important information. And here to tell us more, joining us on the Splash Live, we have the co-founder of the Jamie Daniels Foundation, Lisa Daniels Goldman. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Good morning to you, and it's amazing to hear about all of this work that you're doing to help with the West Bloomfield School District and beyond. Could you tell us a little bit about what is the Jamie Daniels Foundation?
Sure. So the Jamie Daniels Foundation was named in loving memory of my son, Jamie, who died of fentanyl poisoning while he was in treatment in Florida at the age of 23, after he was manipulated by doctors in treatment for financial gain through his insurance. And but the main point of why we started the foundation was felt we had to send Jamie away. There wasn't enough help here locally in Michigan, and once we found out what had happened to him, knowing what we went through, what we continue to go through on a daily basis, not having Jamie in our lives, we didn't want anyone else to suffer that way. So we came out as a family and told Jamie's story and continue to tell Jamie's story, so that hopefully, if we can save one person, that's what we do. So we raise funds. We don't provide programming. We raise funds for programming that help with recovery, stigma reduction, and prevention.
Lisa, first and foremost, very sorry to hear about what you've had to go through and about the loss of Jamie, but it's great that you've been able to turn this into something to help people all throughout the state of Michigan and hopefully beyond. And I want to go into you talk about how you help provide recovery resources for these kids. What are some of those things that you do provide?
So for our recovery pillar, we have helped finance collegiate recovery programming within 9 universities and colleges around the state. And these are programs that are developed on campus in conjunction with the universities and colleges that they're at. And you have to apply, you are vetted, and what the programs do are those that are in recovery who either want to go to university or college or get back to school because they had to leave to go into recovery, have a safe place and somewhere where they can go to continue their recovery with meetings and have 24/7 peer support on campus. And we know that, the stats show us that 85% of the students that are in these collegiate recovery programs go on to graduate and continue with their careers and stay in recovery.
That is amazing. And that's all of this information is so great to hear in helping all of these kids. And when you hear statistics like this, does it just show how far the foundation has come and how much work, like what lies ahead? Things like that. Like, where do you see the foundation going throughout the next few years?
Well, I see us continuing until they don't need us anymore. Unfortunately, we have a drug epidemic in this country, and with financial support, more programs are developed, evidence-based programming that are helping our youth. And we now started our prevention, which is in the elementary schools. And if we teach kids mindfulness and coping through yoga, the goal is to give them the tools that they need, that if they feel anxious or depressed, that they don't turn to self-medicate, and they have tools that they can use themselves in order to avoid that going into middle school and high school. That's why we work with other nonprofits. We work with groups around, like the Greater West Bloomfield Community Coalition, who has this mindfulness and coping through yoga that they implemented into the elementary schools throughout West Bloomfield. And the feedback we've received in the last 2 years that They've had it in the school. I mean, it's just been incredible. This is the second full year that they'll have the program for the students. We've developed it in other communities as well. Or I should say, we've financed it in other communities as well. But the children and the teachers learn mindfulness and coping so that when our wonderful yoga instructor isn't there in the school teaching, the teachers can help the students if they're having a bad day. And it helps with bullying and just, all these things that our kids are now dealing with through social media and everything else. Knowing how to calm yourself at a young age will help you hopefully develop those skills as you get older so that you don't turn to drugs and alcohol and self-medicate and have that potential for substance use disorder to develop.
And that's great that you're working to start with these kids at younger ages so that they know this information as they grow up. For those just joining us, we are talking with Lisa Daniels Goldman, the co-founder of the Jamie Daniels Foundation, who's working with West Bloomfield schools to help talk about substance abuse and to help prevent it. Now, I do want to ask you, Lisa, what are some of the things with drug abuse and drug addiction that many people might not be aware of, like things to maybe look out for?
That's a hard one because unfortunately, you don't have stages. It's not like stage 1, you see this. Somebody who is in distress with substance use disorder, you can go from behaving completely normal and nobody would know, and then the next day, it's out of control. But things that you can look for with your kids is, concentration levels, isolating yourself in your room, isolating yourself from your friends, falling asleep, being excessively tired, anxious, angry. There are a lot of, and when I say these things, you can look at any child and say, well, I dealt with that with my kid and they're not on drugs. And that's true. So it's a very difficult disease to just pinpoint a start. But if parents educate themselves beforehand, when their kids are young, and know what the potential is, because our kids are so much smarter than we are today. They have so much access through social media. Everybody has a phone. Everybody has a computer now. I mean, you have to through school and everything, we want to be in touch with our kids 24/7 when they walk out the door from our home. And through these social media apps, be it, TikTok, Snapchat, they are ordering drugs and they are coming through, the US mail, and you wouldn't know. And I want to stress for parents who are listening, you do not have to be an addict to overdose. Kids are going out on the weekends or with their friends. They are still, if they think that a prescription from their parents or their grandparents' medicine cabinet, well, it was prescribed by a doctor, so it's safe. We can take it too. It's not true. And those are the things that we have to educate ourselves as parents to know that one misstep, your kid's friends say, oh, I got this from my brother and he got it from his friend, but nobody knows who that dealer was that he got it from. And there are so many counterfeit pills that are perfectly, that look identical to Xanax and Percocets and Adderall.
Right.
You wouldn't know the difference having them side by side. So you do not have to be an addict to overdose. One pill can kill.
That is absolutely right. Lisa, thank you so much for your information and for talking about your foundation.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Glad to have you with us and glad to be sharing all of this information right to you, to the 4 communities. That's our time for today. Big shout out to Tyler Kieft at Master Control. I've been your host, Jake Schaff. Live, local, social. It's The Splash Live on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM.